The Green Bay Packers are one of the most high-octane offenses in the NFL, and Sunday they visit the tough defense of the Dolphins. Something has to give in Week 6. This is X's and Omar. I'm CBS 12's Matt Lincoln. He's Sun Sentinel Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly. Hopefully we'll spend the show addressing all the drama and changes that have taken place this week. We'll also take your questions on the show.
What drama?
I mean, this is the Dolphins. What, there wasn't going to be drama?
You know, I've had a lot more drama in my life, courtesy of the Dolphins, than I would like to admit.
Well, and that's what I tell you. Some Dolphins fans, they come up to me and say, "Oh man, Derek Shelby, this has been such a rough week." And I said, "Well, it's the bye week. What are the chances that something bad was going to happen to somebody? Very high. The fact that it's Derek Shelby, hey, it could have been worse.
Listen, I have
could have been worse.
Covered the Dolphins for 8 years. This is the first time we've ever had an incident on the bye week. And if you thought you had a rough week, just take a look at Derek Shelby's face.
Right. All right, and hey, it couldn't. Not as bad as the Love Boat, right? Remember Minnesota Vikings and the all that interesting stuff that happened with Dante Culpepper on the boat? That was on a Vikings bye week. So in retrospect, it's not that bad. We want you to send us your questions on Twitter using the hashtag XOMAR. So let's talk a little bit about this Shelby situation. Defensive end, of course, was arrested early Saturday morning outside a Fort Lauderdale nightclub for trespassing and resisting arrest without violence. Fort Lauderdale officers used 3 shots from a taser to subdue Shelby, who has bruises all over his face and body. The Dolphins have suspended him, and it is unclear when he will return. Omar, did the Dolphins do the right thing in suspending him indefinitely?
I think the Dolphins did the right thing from a suspension standpoint. If you really think about it, Derek Shelby and all of his teammates were told, you're on a bye, you've got the weekend off, you've been off since Thursday, don't get into trouble. Do smart things. Don't embarrass the organization. And from day one, Joe Philbin's gotten there. It's been about respecting the Dolphins, the uniform, respecting your teammates, and representing the team to the best of their ability. While I'm not one of those people who believes that a police report is the gospel and is the end-all, be-all, and what's in that police report is just absolute law. Trust me, I'm not. There are a lot of things about that police report that do not add up.
Right.
Completely, entirely, and right now I think Fort Lauderdale Police Department is covering their behinds in terms of the things that they're saying, things that they're releasing, videos. They still haven't acknowledged how Shelby has all these bruises, but...
And why they needed to tase him three times.
Yeah, and I've talked to officers from multiple agencies who said excessive use of a taser is twice. Derek Shelby was tasered 3 times. Now, what's interesting is that the Dolphins decided that before they see how the legal process plays out, they're going to distance themselves from him. And that was the right thing to do from this standpoint. You don't need Derek Shelby to be a distraction during Green Bay week. It's important that you keep everybody focused and that you set an example in terms of what happens if you do not make the right decisions. And ultimately, Derek Shelby had many opportunities to walk away from that officer, go get in his car, and go home. He chose to be confrontational without being confrontational.
Right. And let's be honest about this. Maybe last year this could have been different, but what has gone on with the NFL this year?
Oh yeah.
And not just with all these off the field incidents, but the way that NFL teams have bungled the way they've handled the off the field incidents.
Yeah.
The Dolphins just had to play it safe and just say you're suspended.
It's a new era, and coincidentally, this same week, that same weekend, a Minnesota Vikings defensive lineman was arrested basically for the same thing. They have not suspended him as of yet. It's just a different approach for different strokes for different folks. But considering all that the Dolphins have been through, considering who Joe Philbin is, if he tells you stay out of trouble, make smart decisions, do it.
Right.
If you don't, there are going to be consequences. Now, I will say this. How Shelby is a very smart individual. Last week, the Dolphins were holding him up as the pillar of standard for what they want their players to be and how they want their players to represent themselves. So all of this doesn't really necessarily make a lot of sense from the standpoint officers are saying that he was intoxicated and drunk. Well, where's your proof?
Right.
Did you give him a blood alcohol test? Did you give him a breathalyzer? No, you didn't do any of those things. Where is your proof that he was assaulting a woman inside the club? Where's the woman? Where's the statement from the woman? If Derek's so adamant about going inside to confront his accuser, how about you leave him here and then go find the woman and bring her out? So, a lot of this doesn't make sense. I'm interested to see how it all plays out within the next 2 weeks. Apparently, the state attorney's office has 21 days from the actual arrest to determine whether or not they're going to file charges or not.
And isn't this so interesting that it's just the day and the age of the NFL right now that we can have all these issues with the way that law enforcement has handled this situation, but we still think the Dolphins have done the right thing by suspending him.
You know what? From this standpoint, you have to set a standard for your team.
Right.
An arrest, in my mind, deserves a suspension. No matter what you are arrested for, if you put the organization in a negative spotlight, you deserve a punishment for it. No matter whether you're guilty or innocent or not, we can figure it out at the end. But what Derek Shelby's going to be suspended without pay, looks like he's going to be fighting with the NFLPA to get his pay back, especially if there's no charges are going to be filed. So, which is a possibility.
You know, and a lot of times with these, it's just about not being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I hate when people say that from this standpoint. It is their one weekend. If I gave you one weekend where you can go do whatever you want for 6 months,
But
am I not allowed to go out to a club and enjoy myself? One weekend you've been working since July and you're going to continue to work till January.
But the problem is, do you have that opportunity? Maybe. Do I have the opportunity
to go to club?
Maybe, but do the people watching us? Yes, they have that right. Do NFL players have that right?
So because
No.
they're football players and they're athletes and they make money, they don't have a right to go out and have a drink or smoke a hookah or chase girls? Is that what you're really saying? A single man is supposed to live in a commune for 5 months because
there are
he's an
other
NFL
places
player.
that you can meet women other than at a hookah in Fort Lauderdale.
What's most he likes? The hookah.
You probably shouldn't like the hookah either when you're an NFL.
Hey,
okay, let's talk about what's going on in the field. Okay, I mean, I know it's a bye week, so we can spend a lot of time talking about this. But let's go on to how much are the Dolphins going to miss Shelby on the field?
You know what? I went over the Oakland Raiders film to look at how exactly he was used, and the way Derek has a specific package that he's used in. It's a defensive lineman heavy package. Right now, the 5-2 is what it's called, especially with Randy Starks out. And then he also subs in for Olivier Vernon for one series, Cameron Wake for one series, and then Jared Odrick for one series. So ultimately, he plays in one package when the coach calls that package, and then he subs in. I think Terrence Fede can fill in as the sub guy, as the defensive end. I think Chris McCain,
Your boy.
My boy. I think Chris McCain can fill in the sub package as a pass rusher. He's not ready to be a defensive end. He can't really set the edge, but I think he can sub in as a pass rusher in a sub package. And then also Anthony Johnson as the defensive tackle who replaces Jared Odrick. The concern that I have is if Randy Starks is healthy and playing, no concern.
Right.
Everything's all good. Because Randy Starks is really the guy who holds down that line more than Cam Wake, more than OV. Randy Starks is that line. He sets the tone. If Randy Starks is not playing, it puts a little stress on the unit.
Well, this is a unit that had one extra guy, two extra guys in it. That keeps everybody fresh and keeps them great.
Absolutely.
So when you go one down, you're fine. When you go two down, now you're saying, all right, maybe they're stringing a little thick here.
They're too deep. I mean, they're too deep on the defensive tackle and too deep on the defensive end, because especially when Deion Jordan comes back in another game, not this game, but the next game. But Shelby was probably the most valuable backup because of his versatility and ability to play so many more roles.
All right, let's take our first question. It comes from @Reno_2801. How does Miami's O-line and D-line match up against the Packers?
Yeah, I think they match up very well. If you look at the Packers from the standpoint, they're one of the worst teams in the league against the run. They've allowed 815 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns, 6.6 yards per carry. You can run on them, and they're the worst running defense in the NFL. So I think that's favorable for the Dolphins' offensive line because they're the 5th best running offense in the NFL. A lot of that is the backs, but then a lot of that is the offensive line. And especially if Mike Pouncey comes back and gives you a little bit more of a run search, because Mike Pouncey's strength is his run blocking, it could play into your favor to run the ball against the Packers.
How about on the other side? Do you feel like the Dolphins have that defensive line that we've been talking about? Do you think that they can get
After Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
You know, the last time the Dolphins played Green Bay, it was up in Green Bay, and Cameron Wake, I believe, had 3 sacks in an overtime victory. He consistently harassed Aaron Rodgers. To me, I think that's the only way the Dolphins are going to be able to pull out a victory. They got to run the ball and make Aaron Rodgers uncomfortable.
But he is one of the best guys at
He is the second best quarterback in the NFL right now.
And moving on the run, he can throw the ball a lot better than some of the other pocket passes.
That's
so
my
good.
major fear about Aaron Rodgers, his ability to extend plays and improvise. You want to keep him in that pocket. You want to get him down on sacks, but if you don't get him down, you're going to be in trouble.
12 touchdowns, just 1 interception for Rodgers this year. All right, the Dolphins appear to be getting some reinforcements back this week. Koamisi, we might see back. Mike Pouncey, we're going to be seeing back. Rashad Jones, definitely going to be back. Who makes the biggest difference?
I think it is going to be Mike Pouncey.
Okay.
From this standpoint, Mike Pouncey has hinted a lot that he's probably going to be playing right guard. He's hinted a lot that he played center because his brother played center, and because that's how he got the first round status. That's how he got the first round money, and Mike loves his money. But I think Mike is looking at it from the long-term perspective, and he thinks right now the best way that he can help this team is as a right guard. And if you give them an athletic guard, Darren College is cool.
Yeah.
And Dallas Thomas is cool. Shelley Smith played well, except for when he was getting housed by Buffalo, Kyle Williams. But if you give them an athletic guard that can pull and get to the second level and get to linebackers, man, this running game can be something special. And I think that that's what Mike sees, and I think he's willing to make that sacrifice for the team.
So you think it's not as much maybe what Satele has done. It's just kind of been like, all right, well, maybe this is not the right spot for me.
I can see, based on watching the film, Satele has played well. Now, he's held up against power pigs, which is the Kyle Williams and the Vince Wilforks. He's helped on pass blocking. He's gotten to the second level in running game. I would say he's probably the third, fourth best offensive lineman on the team. Now, you add Pouncey to the mix, and Joe Philbin's goal is to start the best 5. If you look at how the best 5 would work, if Satele isn't an issue at center, and you do have an issue at right guard, and you play Pouncey at right guard, the position that he actually played at college, everything fits in well. I can't say that I support it. I'm still need to talk to Pouncey to figure out. Pouncey's a smart guy, and what is his motivation? He always has a motivation, and I have not figured out what his motivation is yet. And with Pouncey, usually it's about money, and he's trying to get to that next contract. Maybe it's to convince, or maybe he's trying to be the team leader or team player. I don't know. I got to figure out what his motivation is.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll find out before Sunday. Our next question comes from Tyler Ashmore at I Heal for Fee. With Rashad Jones back at safety, is Jimmy Wilson moving back to the nickel? Also, who's the gunner on special teams?
Yeah, Jimmy Wilson was actually used a little bit more on special teams against Oakland Raiders. But yes, he's going back to nickel. Thank you. Appreciate it. You got to get Will Davis off the field. And I loved Will. I do love Will. I think he played so well in the exhibition season. He proved that he deserved the playing time. However, it didn't translate when the regular season got here. And right now, if you look at the stretch of games that the Dolphins are about to play, they're about to play some serious quarterbacks. And what do serious quarterbacks do? They pick on the weak link in the secondary. It's obvious who the weak link is. It's Will Davis. You got to get him off the field. You got to put Jimmy Wilson in a position he's played for the past 2 years. He's one of the top 10 nickel cornerbacks in the NFL. His physical presence can help you in the run game, help you with those small slot receivers. I think it will make the Dolphins secondary better.
Question is, what do we expect out of Rashad Jones?
You know what? They allowed Louis Delmas, and that's an interesting question. The Dolphins allowed Louis Delmas to freelance a lot more than they would have allowed Rashad Jones to do last year. And that could be because Jelani Jenkins showed that he's a proficient guy from a coverage standpoint. Now that you've gotten back to the point where you've got linebackers who can actually cover and aren't liabilities from a coverage standpoint, you've at least got one. Koamisi has proven he can cover throughout his career. Now that you have those two coverage linebackers, maybe you can allow Rashad Jones to freelance like he did back in 2012 when he had that dynamic year. If you allowed Louis Delmas to do it, why wouldn't you allow Rashad Jones to do it? I mean, you really just have to get somebody play free safety, be the last line of defense, and allow Rashad to do what he does. And that plays to his strengths.
It's quite the test for him in his first game of the year against Aaron Rodgers. At D. Malzacker wants to know, is Miami's defensive scheme going to allow Jones to freelance at safety? We just answered that question. So Mike Pouncey has dropped enough hints about his move to right guard. What's behind this thinking? We've answered that question already. Let's go to John E. Fresh. He wants to know, is Billy Turner completely out of the right guard equation because of his play or of his health, or now is it just because it's Pouncey's position?
I like Billy Turner.
Yeah.
I think before the turf toe issue surfaced, I think he showed you that he can be a very good run blocking offensive lineman. He can get you surge at the line of scrimmage. But they clearly don't need it.
Right.
His shortcoming was his pass blocking. I think a bigger issue is to make sure that pass protection is good, especially considering Ryan Tannehill needs a secure pocket. So, to me, I would be developing Billy Turner right now as the backup left tackle because, as you know, Brandon Albert has got a shoulder injury that's impacted him the past 2 games. And while he's playing well with it now, we're only 4 games into the season. You've got to start grooming somebody who might have to finish out the season as the left tackle. And in an ideal world, to me, that's Billy Turner because he played that position at North Dakota State.
The Packers happen to be the team Joe Philbin comes from. He's very close with Mike McCarthy, part of that coaching tree.
They texted all week? No. They text often, not this week.
Philbin don't text.
Philbin does text.
Philbin does text?
He says he doesn't text often,
okay,
but he does text. But I can't imagine Joe Philbin sitting there at his phone and texting Mike McCarthy.
Using emoticons, smiley face?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That's Joe. He's an emoticon guy.
Do you expect this familiarity with the Green Bay personnel to have any sort of impact on the game?
I think the carryover personnel, when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, Joe Philbin coached Aaron Rodgers for a number of years, saw him as a baby quarterback, saw him as a first-year starter. He knows his strengths and his weaknesses. He knows what Aaron Rodgers doesn't like. He knows maybe you flush Aaron to his left and his accuracy is off. So Joe Philbin knows those things. He also knows the shortcomings of Jordy Nelson, and he's been there with Cobb when he was drafted. So he knows their limitations. Now, the offensive linemen, some of those offensive linemen are holdovers. So he knows what moves and what pass rushings give them issues. So I think it can help him from that standpoint, but there isn't much carryover from the defense or from the running game. And maybe he knows Mike McCarthy's tendencies, but Mike McCarthy also knows his tendencies. Not that Joe Philbin is actually coaching the team or calling the plays, because he doesn't really. But he knows what Joe likes to do in 3rd and 4, and vice versa. But ultimately, that's not how you win games in the NFL. It comes down to execution. And right now, to win this game, Ryan Tannehill, I think it's going to be a shootout. I think we're going to look at a game where there's 50 points, and Ryan Tannehill is going to have to outgun Aaron Rodgers. Are you ready for that?
No, I'm not. I don't think Dolphins fans are either.
Yeah, you look like you didn't believe it, but I really do think if it comes down to a 4th quarter game, Ryan Tannehill has proven that he can step up and play well in 4th quarter games. He can deliver.
Not this year yet, but
not this year yet, but last year he certainly did it a number of times. And we still haven't seen, I say this all the time, the offense is still in 3rd gear. They're the 15th best offense in the NFL, have the 5th best rushing attack, they're efficient in the red zone. But what is this offense predicated on? It's predicated on delivering big plays. We still haven't seen any big plays.
No.
And we still haven't seen them be efficient on 3rd downs. And I think that's what's holding this offense back. Remember, this is Ryan Tannehill's 4th game, really his 8th game, considering the exhibition season. Really his 4th game in this new offense. And I would expect it to get into gear and get grooving right around game 8. And he's got to get on that road right now.
And this is a defense that theoretically you should be able to score on.
You should be able to score on them. Yeah, without a doubt. You should be able to run the ball, control time of possession, and efficiently throw the ball. Outside of Sam Shields, I don't see any significant threats in that secondary.
Right. So you keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. Keep him away from the field as much as possible. And the Woods wants to know, can we get pressure on Rodgers without blitzing, or would you blitz him?
I would not blitz him.
No,
From this standpoint, I think you got to put people in the right gaps, and especially a 5. I like the 5-2 for the Packers. They don't really have a good slot. They don't really have a good number 3. They put Cobb in the slot position. They don't really have a dynamic tight end. So why not kill every lane, force them to throw the ball, and I'm comfortable with them throwing the ball. I think the priority should be to stop Eddie Lacy and shut him down, contain him, and keep them from being two-dimensional.
It's going to be hard not to keep a big Cobb touchdown or a big Nelson touchdown. They're going to score
They're
points.
going to score points. I mean, if you look at it from the standpoint, they've scored 31 points, 38 points, 42 points. They put up points.
Right.
You're going to have to keep pace. And that's on everybody, not just Ryan Tannehill. That's on the offensive line to give him a clean pocket. That's on Tannehill to deliver big plays, be efficient in the red zone, be efficient on third down. It's on his receivers to catch the ball. And guys like Charles Clay, you've got to take advantage of you. Charles Clay's going to have a tremendous mismatch. You've got to take advantage of that and create openings for your quarterback.
And this defensive line was built not to have to blitz to create pressure.
Absolutely. They should be able to get pressure. Cameron Wake did it once. He should be able to do it again.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about quarterbacks. Jeff Bush at Non-Inventive asks, has a very good question about Bill Lazor. What does he need to do going forward to help Tannehill develop? I know we've already talked about Ryan Tannehill a little too much in this show for your taste, but let's ask this question. Are you expecting a little bit of a different Lazor offense through the bye week?
No.
Sunday.
I like this offense.
Right.
I love this offense.
But more big plays.
Yes, you're missing big plays. You're still in gear 3. For those people who don't know what gears are, if you had back in the day where you had a stick shift and there were 5 gears to the car, when you got into 5th gear, you were really going and revving. And right now, they are getting no big plays. Right. No, the Dolphins' longest play, I believe, has been 24 yards. And that's, actually, I think Hartline has like a 30-yard catch. This offense is predicated on creating favorable mismatches. I was looking at the film, and when you put 6 men in the box, the Dolphins are bringing their tight end in, and they're running at you because it's 6-on-6. All the back has to do is make somebody miss, and he can house it. When you put 5-6 men into coverage, when you put 8 men in the box or 7 men in the box, they're going to throw the ball because every receiver has a one-on-one. So right now it's about putting the ball in position for the playmakers to make plays, and then they have to make something happen. I don't think the quarterback has played well enough. I don't think the receivers have played well enough. But in terms of Ryan Tannehill, he's got to be better on third downs. Yeah. Third downs extends drives. And the Dolphins want to be more of an up-tempo offense, but they can't be up-tempo if they're not converting third downs. According to Joe Philbin, they want to start becoming up-tempo. Once they convert that third down, then it's like hurry, speed the pace up. And that just hasn't been the case. They're one of the in the bottom third of the league in terms of third down conversions.
And when you have a quarterback that's having some trouble on third down, then you don't want to take those high-risk throws early because that sets up second and long and third and long. You want to set up easy third downs.
Well, you don't want to shoot, throw a 9 route on 3rd and 7.
Right.
I would, but you don't want to. You want to throw it on first down. And if you're struggling to convert those first downs, that's a problem. But the Dolphins are one of the league leaders in the amount of first downs that they get. They're one of the league leaders in yards per play.
Right.
They're one of the league leaders in the red zone. That shows you the offense is pretty decent. Mm-hmm. It just has to get to the next level.
And what's interesting about all those stats is that's mostly because they're running the ball well, not because they're throwing the ball.
I'm a believer in old school football.
Yeah, well,
you can run and play great defense, and you can win. Look at the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah. Look at the San Francisco 49ers. You can win playing that style. You don't need a quarterback who's throwing for 5,000 yards a game to win in the NFL.
But that's not going to stop 5 to 10 people tweeting you every week about why they're not going deep more. All right, at KCruck23 wants to know, which Packers receiver could cause the most problems?
Got to be Jordy Nelson. Probably. I mean, even though Randall Cobb leads the team with 6 touchdowns, Jordy Nelson he's got size to him. He's got speed. He's got great hands. He's going to be a good matchup. If it were me, and it's never me, I would be shadowing Brent Grimes on him.
Right.
I don't understand why the Dolphins don't put their best man on the opponent's best man, especially when he's one of the league's elite receivers. And I do view Jordy Nelson as one of the league's elite receivers.
He certainly has played like it this year, no question. At Robert Alvarez has a Dolphin-specific question. Any updates on Charles Clay's knee? How's he look this week?
He's practicing. He's moving. He's not moving. He's not creating the separation that he used to. That's just the reality of it. Until he has the knee scoped and heals again, it's just going to be the way it is.
All right. And let's take some quick hits, right? We got some questions. Well, I got one for you. any hope that we see Moreno this weekend? He's practiced a little bit. He's got that huge
practicing.
brace on.
He's got a huge brace. If they're comfortable with him playing with that huge brace on, then okay. I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, from a pass protection standpoint, you're sort of telegraphing where you are in terms of what you're doing. But, you know, maybe you give him a couple series to see how things go. But I would lean towards sticking with what you got.
Okay. One of the questions from today, Elliot asks, what are Coach Philbin's best and worst coaching traits?
Wow.
This is only a 25 to 30 minute show.
Best coaching trait is the fact that I like the game plans. I think they're a well-organized, very organized team. I don't think they do make good halftime adjustments. I think that probably falls into the worst traits. And I really have a hard time believing that the team will, when they hit adversity, that they're going to rally around him and play for their coaching staff. Joe Philbin just doesn't come across with the Tony Sperano-esque do it for the Gipper kind of mentality. He's just Joe Philbin. He's the principal,
right,
as I call him. And the personality...
The librarian. You call him the principal or librarian? You call him both.
I call him both,
The principarian.
Yes. The principarian. It's just a personality that wears on you after a while, and all personalities wear. Look at what's going on with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah,
you know, that raw personality wears on you after a while
Rex
as well.
Ryan too.
Rex,
you know, I mean, lots of things aren't working.
Every coach has their shortcomings and their strengths. Ultimately, I always believe what gets you hired is going to get you fired.
Right.
Joe Philbin was hired here because Steve Ross believed that he can help a quarterback develop into elite status, and because you can run an efficient offense. So far, they've got an efficient offense, but what about that quarterback?
What about that quarterback? Not his fault they picked the wrong guy. Kendall Jackson asks, how do the Dolphins receivers fare against Green Bay secondary?
I think they're pretty well. I mean, I don't really think there's a cornerback that's out there that can really defend Mike Wallace, considering who he is and what he does and how he creates speed. And now he's got these 8 pounds of muscle. Yeah. He's playing with power.
Well, I mean, you joke about it, but you can see it.
I mean, he the funny thing is he goes to the locker room and he's always flexing because, you know, he's put on 8 pounds of muscle and he looks different, and he clearly is playing different. Right. So it's allowed him to be a little bit better running after the catch. Now, the question is, you know, what about Brian Hartline? And I'm not really that pleased in terms of what I've seen from Brian Hartline, in terms of the usage of him, in terms of the plays that are called for him, and in terms of Ryan Tannehill looking for his blankie.
Right.
It's just not, they're not in sync, and I really think that this offense is at their best when Brian Hartline is the #1 receiver.
Yeah. The guy, the dependable guy.
The dependable guy, the guy who's converting third downs. And right now, Ryan Tannehill's looking for him on third downs, but that becomes a little predictable after a while.
And this passing game is at its best when they do have Charles Clay out there doing Charles Clay things.
I don't know if that's ever that's going to happen.
Happen this year? You don't think at all?
No.
Wow. Breaking news.
I don't think
Clay
he has,
never going to be at 100% this year.
I don't think he has the explosion and the acceleration that he once had.
Okay.
That he used to have. Will it come back? Probably, but he's limping around all year, and he's in a knee brace all game. It impacts you after a while.
That's sad. All right, so Omar, we each finally pulled out our first winning prediction of the season, and we took a week off, a bye to celebrate, I guess. This game should provide the Dolphins even more of a challenge. How do you? It's really some interesting matchups when you look at the Green Bay receivers against the Dolphins secondary and this Dolphins defensive line, getting Aaron Rodgers. Really some interesting matchups. How do you see it breaking down?
I see the Dolphins losing 28-24.
Okay.
I think this game is going to be a shootout. The reasons I'm uncomfortable with this game is from this standpoint. If it's a shootout, who are you taking, Aaron Rodgers or Ryan Tannehill?
That's the problem. That's where you get to that.
Yes.
You don't like to talk about quarterbacks making that much, but in this situation, it's large.
Without Randy Starks being Randy Starks, I have an issue in terms of them stopping the run. In terms of the tight end would be the ideal position to exploit Green Bay's defense. Well, Charles Clay is not really Charles Clay. The only way I can see the Dolphins pulling out a victory is if they have a dominant rushing performance against Green Bay, which is possible. And they get Aaron Rodgers to commit some turnovers, or the Packers to commit some turnovers. But the Packers are the #1 team in the league in turnovers, in turnover margin. So it's not looking too good.
And they got their rushing game really going last week for the first time. They seem to be clicking on both sides of the offense. It's rough. I am taking the Dolphins to lose as well. 31-24. I think it's going to be hard for the Dolphins to keep the Packers under 30. I think it's going to be rough.
I think the defense can do it, and that's one of the issues that I'm writing about in a recent column about what are the standards for this defense. Keeping Aaron Rodgers to 24 points should be respectable, right? The question is, can the offense give you 27?
I think they can. I think they can in this game.
Okay.
So I think you're right. I think if it's under 20, even if it's under 27 points, if the Dolphins keep the Packers under 27 points, they can score 28 or more against this Packers team. I just don't think the first part's going to happen.
Okay.
All right, well, that's it for this week's version of X's Omar. Once again, we broadcast live every Wednesday at 12:15 p.m. right here on SunSentinel.com. The series is replayed later today on these pages. You can also find a First and 10 with Dolphins linebacker Jason Trusnick on the SunSentinel.com sports page. Thanks for joining us.